Sociocracy for All webinar on consent, how to invite, welcome, and deal with objections. That's what we call it. So first of all, what is an objection? And sociocracy does have a very specific definition of what an objection is. So typically you raise an objection when you have a concern that a proposal that is being dealt with right now will get in the way of the circle's aim or the organization's aim. What is an aim? An aim is something very specific. It's actually what you do, either your circle or your committee or your organization, what they actually do. Like I have an example here, offering a Thanksgiving dinner to the homeless in Madison County. So this is not ending homelessness. That would be your mission, but something that you actually do in your group. So an objection will be everything that will interfere with this, everything that will keep you from actually working towards the aim. So obviously when we want to do something, when we have an aim, we will have a preference of how we want to do this. This is what we call the personal preference. This is how I think we should be doing things. That's my personal preference. And then there are things that I think would harm the aim, and that's when I would object. So this is why I say, like, no, I can't work with this. If we implement this and that, what you're proposing right now, I won't be able to do my work anymore. If those were the only possible answers, and we would have to make a decision together, since this looks differently for everybody, then the overlap between our personal preferences would be very small, and we would probably not find any common ground to make a decision. That's why in sociocracy we put quite some emphasis on, so if I have no objection, I can work with this. It's not what I wanted, it's not what I really wanted to do, what I think is the best thing to do, but it's something I can work with. And then you will not object. So if you think of it like with a basic understanding of consensus, and consensus, oftentimes, not always, oftentimes people are trying to get their personal preference. Instead, we're trying to work with their light blue part of saying like, okay, this is something I can work with. And you can imagine that the overlap, if you have several people, the overlap will be bigger, and all the blue, light blue and dark blue is what they can find an overlap with. When do we hear objections? There is, again, a very specific order of things, and if you look deeper into sociocracy, you will find out what that is and how we make decisions. But I'm just going to walk you through very basic steps here. So you would present a proposal, you would answer clarifying questions, you would hear quick reactions, and then you do a consent round, and that's when you hear the objections. And typically what we do is we just gather all the objections. You do a round. We always do rounds. There we go. So everybody is speaking in a round and say, person A has an objection. You just go, thank you, write it down, or you at least will remember it. And then number 3 has also has an objection, and they go around and gather them all. One important piece about that is that already just writing it down on a list validates people instantly in that moment. So that by itself already is a good thing to do, and you haven't even started dealing with it yet. So that was the when we hear objections. We now know what objections are. We know when we hear them. Now the why. Why do we want to hear objections? And that is sort of the spin that we gave this webinar, because we made a provocative statement of we want to hear objections. We want to invite objections. Why would we do that? Typically what people think is that just slows the process down, right? We want to make a decision, get things done, and then somebody has an objection. But if you remember what the definition was of an objection, it actually sounds very differently. Since an objection is a concern that a policy might conflict with the circle's aim, the objection will contain valuable information that everybody wants to hear and understand before we make a decision. So everybody who says, hold on, if we do this, then I might not be able to do my work that I'm here for anymore. Then if you think of objections that way, of course you will want to hear it, because obviously we want everybody to be able to do their job. or whatever their contribution is if it's a volunteer organization. We want to have everybody in the boat for whatever we do. We want to be able to rely on them being able to work towards the aim. So why would we ignore it if they say, hey, this doesn't work for me? It doesn't make any sense if you think of it that way. So the time spent on objections is definitely time worth spending. And we're going for sustainability in the long run. So in the long run, you want people to identify with what they're doing. You don't want to throw a monkey wrench in whatever they're doing. You want to be able to decide as a group how you can work things. So that's the why we want to hear objections. It's valuable information. Often we get asked, so who's responsible for addressing the objection? And there seems to be a rumor going. And the rumor is, in sociocracy, the objector, so the person who objects, has to come up with a better proposal. I think that sort of comes from the consensus world, that people think that. And the answer is, yes, that's true. But really a better way to say it is, everybody in the circle is responsible to deal with the objection. It's not that you have to make a better proposal if you object, it's the whole group. And why is that? Because if you think of an objection as something that somebody brings up because he or she is concerned that they might not be able to do the circle's work towards the circle's aim, then they might be bringing up a point that is actually true for everybody. So they are basically just saying out loud what is important for everybody, something I might not have thought of. So somebody objecting basically brings up a concern that is important for everybody. So we all, the whole circle, is responsible to deal with it. So that sort of brings it on the content level instead of the interpersonal level. It's not the objector who has to do something because since they're slowing down the process, at least they should fix it. That's not the thinking at all. Instead, it's, oh, thank you for bringing that up. What can we do as a group to make sure we all can work with this? That is the mindset we're going for. For everybody who's fairly new in sociocracy, this is a whole culture change that we're working towards. This is a culture setting. The next thing about objections we did, oh, now I'm losing track. We did the what is it, when do we hear it, why do we want to hear it, how do we invite objections? If you realize, yes, true, objections are something I want to hear, how, if you're in a position of like and like wherever you are in your organization, if you say are a facilitator, how can I make sure people say it, what they're thinking? Because it's not the common culture to be inviting objections. So you're working against mainstream culture here. So you have to be very explicit about things. One thing you can do is training, like send them the link to this webinar. This is the mindset we're going after. I want you to speak up when you have something to say. And this is where I learned this. And here's some background information. So this is how I see objections. And again, culture change, that is sort of what we're always going for. It's the culture change. So this is not only lip service. If you invite objections, you also have to do something with them. So one is you can ask for objections. And I have an example here because I like phrasing it in natural language. So if you have, so you could, for instance, say in a meeting, you don't even have to be the facilitator for that. You could be saying, if you have doubts that you can work with this, now would be a good time to say it so we can make the proposal better. That is something everybody in the circle can say. You can do that at your next meeting. It's not a hard thing to do. So it is an open invitation to speak up. And you're also setting the tone if you say, so we can make the proposal better. You can model it yourself. You can say things, again, in natural language. I'm concerned that this might be in conflict with what we want to be doing. Can we find a way to make it safer? So it would be you objecting, and then you would have to explore why you think there might be a conflict with your aim. The more objections there are being brought up, the more it will be part of culture that that's something you can do. So people might lose their fear. If you invite and model objections, you will also have to know how to deal with objections. And the most important thing there is you have to know your options. So what do you do within objections? And basically, again, the culture we're going for is the more options we have, the more competence we have in dealing with objections, the less we'll be afraid of objections. The more people will voice their opinion, the more information we will have, the more transparent everything will be, the more inclusive, and so on. So this is the direction where we're heading. So what are the options? I'm going to go through to the basic categories, and then I'm going to talk more about it. One is seek understanding, understand what this is really about. And then the proposal, just change something, adjust. And the other one is refer to other circle or get feedback from another circle. Now let's look at it. The first one will be seek understanding. So we have our options for moving forward, seek understanding. Those are basically 3 questions that are all really aiming for the same thing. What is the concern? What is the interference with the circle's or organization's aim? And is this a personal preference or an objection? One thing I have to say about the first 2 is there you will have to ask whether you're the facilitator or just a normal member of the circle. Ask. You can also just guess. Like, is it that you're concerned about, I don't know, the budget? Is it that you're concerned about how this will be perceived? Or, ask. Try to guess. Make clear that it is a guess and that you're not putting words into someone's mouth. Formulate it as a guess. If you know some basic NVC, this is where you can play that card. The most important thing is here to take it seriously, because those people who are objecting have something they have something valuable to say. And then the other thing is personal preference or objection. So again, for people who are new to sociocracy, the difference, remember those circles, those overlapping circles, personal preference was in the middle. And a good example is, if I say make a new website, my personal preference might be blue, somebody else's might be green. Is it just a personal preference, or is it an actual objection? We could find out by doing testing and whatever, surveying, and is it going to harm our business if we make the website green instead of blue? I would say, I know there's some studies about that, but let's say probably not, and then it's just a personal preference. Do we have to fight for hours just for personal preference? Probably not. Or we can, push it somewhere else, but we don't have to sit 8 people and decide about the color. That doesn't make sense. In general, even if it's just a personal preference, it is worth listening, because most people, once they know that they're being respected and they're being heard, they might let go of their objection already right there. All right, the second big set of options for moving forward is amendments. So we change something, we revise the content, just, whatever your policy is. And one thing that I really like about sociocracy is the option of shortening the term. So in sociocracy, we always put a term date on a policy. So we're trying this for 1 year, then we're going to reevaluate. If somebody has a concern about it, we could ask, like, are you willing to try this for 3 months? How can we find out what your concern is? How can we find out whether that actually happens? You could survey, you could count whatever, you could look at statistics, and then you'll revisit and actually know whether the concern had some truth. If you promise to revisit, obviously you also have to do it. So the accountability piece here is very important. Otherwise, you go into lip service again. All right, 3 set of options for moving forward. Refer to. Send an issue to a different circle or get feedback from a different circle. In sociocracy, if you have those interlinked circles, you basically have your helping system built into the system. So you can ask a subcircle. Hold on, I have a picture here. So if this is our circle, we have a subcircle there that we can ask. Let's ask the subcircle, get some feedback there, because they're the experts in that. Then we can ask a broader circle, like the parent circle. I put all those in quotes, subcircle and parent circle, because some people get triggered when you use hierarchy, like up or down and all of that. So that's why we're going for the more focused circle, like more specific. And I'm putting in quote after, because it's easier to understand for people, but it triggers people, so I'm doing both. Subcircle, going down, create a helping circle, that's an ad hoc circle. So again, with that blue circle that has circle in it, so if we have a special task, we would form a helping circle here. that would then just be temporary. That's why I made a dashed line around it. And what else can we do? And we can just give the policy piece, the proposal, back to the author. So we gave you a lot of feedback now. Can you just rewrite it before we spend too much time on this now? These are all the referred to options. The important thing here is there has to be a next step. So if you pass something on to a sub-circle, a helping circle, or if you get feedback from them, then you actually have to make sure it ends up there so they get it. And you have to make a request or write down, if you form a new sub-circle, write down the aim for that sub-circle, appoint a person who convenes that circle. Just a statement like somebody should look into this is not enough to make it happen. And I have a good little piece of advice that I actually do when I'm a secretary in a group. After every agenda item, while I'm typing, I always have next step right there, just those 2 words for every single agenda item. And when I notice during a meeting that we didn't set a next step, then we weren't done. There has to be a next step. Even if the next step we're dropping this issue, do it intentionally. Don't just drop it because you forget to appoint somebody and then nothing happens. You will get this decision-making sheet as a PDF, and this is basically what we just talked about. So there you have seek understanding, amend proposal, referred to, on all of that. And so just so you know, at the top right-hand corner, that's where all of those are. It looks very innocent down there, stuck, do around on what to do. But really, this is something we say all the time, because if you've ever done that, just ask the group, like, I'm lost, I don't know what to do. Do around, ask everybody in the group, just in a quick go around, and it's like magic. That was basically it. Now I'm going to walk you through 2 examples that actually happened when I was facilitator. Example 1, that was very recently actually. I'm part of the local time bank, and we were trying to deal with membership stuff. I was the facilitator. So we had a proposal on the table. The membership circle, that was us. Membership circle is forming a new sub-circle called Outreach and Orientations to do outreach to non-members and to perform orientations. That's something we decided there in the meeting, that we wanted the sub-circle. So there is a sub-circle community building, but we wanted to add the OO, Outreach and Orientation Circle. So we did a round, after clarifying questions and quick reactions. In the quick reaction, somebody already said, I'm not really sure what this is going to look like. And then in the consent round, she told us her objection. And her objection was, how are we going to populate this circle? We are stretching ourselves too thin and might burn out. I was noticing in me this little sense of, oh no, now somebody has a concern again. Now there's going to be the naysayers. This is not going to work anyway, blah, blah, all of that. But since I was the facilitator, I was lucky enough to pull myself together and like, all right, this is just an objection. So what is her concern? Oh yeah, she's actually right. We might actually be overdoing it right now. And what if we all burn out? That's definitely in conflict with the circle's aim. We can't do our work if we burn out. So she has a point there. Okay, so we did a round on what we can do. And we came up with several things we can do. And I'm adding them here. We said we're going to recruit circle members by sending emails to the general membership, it was, I think. We had a plan for that. We will reevaluate in 3 months and would like 3 committed circle members for that new circle by that time. If not, in 3 months we won't have 6 members total, then the existence of that sub-circle will be reconsidered. So we're not going to try for 2 years to populate that circle. We'll just change our strategy then. Because the objector there had a good point. This is risky. We might just burn out. But I asked her, so after we had gathered all those ideas and made those amendments, so I asked the objector, is this something you can live with? And she said, yes. From this decision-making sheet, this is just the piece that had this white circle around it, if there are objections. So what did we actually use out of the things that we just heard about? Seek understanding, amend proposal, and refer to different circle. What did we use in this actual example? First of all, seek understanding. I asked her, so tell me more, what's your concern? because first when she said she objected, she wasn't really very clear about what her concern was. We really had to work to get it into, like, get some clarity around it. We saw there's some interference with the aim. We revised the content by being more specific about how we're going to recruit members, new members for that circle. We shortened the term for the proposal by saying, okay, we're not going to put this in place for a year, or from now on, like until forever, there will be a new subcircle. But we said, okay, for 3 months, we're going to try this. And also her concern was we're not going to have enough people. Well, let's count them. What is the number that we would like to have? What feels safe? 6. Okay, let's try to get 6. If we're only going to have 5, then doesn't mean everything collapses. It just means we have more information now. If we hadn't had any framework to work with her objection, we might have just dropped the idea in the first place, because she wouldn't have agreed to forming a new subcircle. She would have just blocked it because she was so concerned about it. Now, with these amendments and these changes and a shorter term and so on, it felt safe to her. And people were very happy in that meeting. Felt very respectful and connected, that piece. Second example is, again, a real-life example. I think I was facilitator again. This is an example from a co-housing community. There was a policy piece, so in a co-housing community is typically self-governed. And people have to do community work, like mow the lawn, clean the common house, cook dinners, or something like that, committee work. Every community member has to do 6 hours of community work. And now there was this old policy piece that we were still dealing with, and we were revisiting it. If you don't work, you can pay dollars. So it's pay or play. You can pay money instead of doing your community work, which is very controversial. Yeah, so that's our community work circle. It's called differently, but that's what it is. And our mother circle is community life, and then the other circles on the community work level. So we were sitting in our community work circle thinking like, all right, we're supposed to revise this policy about pay or play, but this feels so big. Like, this just opens up so many cans of worms that we don't really want to touch this. We feel like we need to ground this in some bigger discussion about, like, for instance, aging. Like, what if people, in 10 years are not able to mow the lawns anymore, and then everybody starts paying instead of doing it, and then where's that going to go? So that was our concern. We felt totally overwhelmed. So, but there is no reason to be afraid, because we have a mother circle, and we just asked a mother circle for feedback. So that's where we went. The important piece here is that there's 2 options. One is to just ask for feedback, and then it comes back into community work circle. So in that scenario, the decision stays in the community work circle, since community work is definitely our domain. We could also be deciding, that would be a different scenario if we've realized that an issue isn't actually in our domain, we would have to pass it on. So that's a little bit of a different case. It's not asking for feedback while the decision stays with you, but really actually passing the whole topic on. Like, for instance, we had a case where the Common House Committee, so that's a community building, was discussing kids' behavior during meals because they were too noisy. So they realized that doesn't really have to do with the meals in the common house. It really has to do more with community life, like with interpersonal stuff. So they passed the whole topic onto community life, saying, this is in your domain, deal with it. That's a different thing. But both work. The important thing is just that the next step has to be clear. You have to know what you're doing, and if you pass it on, then make it official. So there's no rumors that you're supposed to deal with that in that other circle, but that there's a clear mandate of what happens with that now. What we did was we just referred to a broader circle, got feedback. The decision-making sheet is on our website. More about this whole feedback process is also in our longer video. We very recently just recorded a how-to video about the decision-making sheet, the big sheet I showed you, that we only looked at the objection piece of that today. So there is a video on that now. I very much recommend you subscribe to Jerry's YouTube channel. And follow us on Twitter because we do post a lot of cool resources there. Here's how SOFA can help you. We offer a bunch of free resources. I already said that at the beginning: articles, videos, webinars, webinar recordings. We offer in-person workshops. You can, that's actually something we want to promote more because it's such a good way of staying in touch and getting help. Put Jerry on a retainer. So if you have somebody to check in with every month, it will be much easier to start doing more sociocracy in your organization. And I've just put a random number in here for price, just so you know the ballpark. All right. We do something we call sociocracy leadership training. It's a 12-week training. Some people who are in the training piece now are actually in this webinar. And if you're watching the recording of this webinar, then just check the website. It will say when the next cycle will start. Here's how you can help SOFA. One is share the free resources and use them. The aim of Sociocracy for All is to produce content and spread sociocracy. So whenever you download our decision-making sheet and you use it, your meeting will get better and you share power in a healthy way, then you actually support our aim. So that's awesome. And our mission of a world built on healthy power, we get a little closer to that with every person who uses our resources. You can invite Jerry for a workshop. And of course, you can donate to Sociocracy for All. We're a nonprofit. It's all tax deductible. That will help us generate more content like this. And we can support organizations who we bring sociocracy to. If you participate or watch the recording, you can go to our website right after and donate something like $5 so we can keep doing this kind of stuff.